One of my motives was that as a pastor, I just had too many people to care for, and I just couldn't do it all. And that was a big motive. There were really two other motives too. One is that lay people had been saying to me in so many words, and actually saying to me, we would like to have something very meaningful to do. We'd like to use our gifts for ministry. And then a third major need was that people who needed care needed more than just a visit or two from me or from another church staff person. So it's kind of like all three of those needs kind of clustered together, and out came the Stephen series. We had plenty of lay people to come forward and to commit to becoming Stephen ministers, and since that time 500,000 more have done that. Another challenge that we did not have was lay people or care receivers willing to receive care from a fellow lay person. Sometimes people think that people in need of care require a pastor. Well, we found that that was not true. Whenever a pastor or another significant staff person asks somebody or presents the possibility of having a Stephen minister, people usually say yes. And the reason why they say yes is because they're hurting so badly. They've lost a loved one, they're terminally ill, they're going through a separation or divorce, or they're mildly depressed, or they're lonely, or they've got a faith crisis, and it's like beggars can't be choosers. They really want somebody to talk to. And so Stephen Ministry is very unique in that way, that people can really say what's on their mind. It's more about listening, it's more about being authentic, really real to that person. It's more about giving that person unconditional positive regard, just loving that person with that charitable kind of love, and accepting that person for who he or she is. And that, by the way, is extremely powerful. Problem solving, I think, is the number one challenge to Stephen ministers. It's a number one challenge to anybody. I think it's even a challenge for psychotherapists, because you want so badly to suggest this or suggest that. It's kind of like you're caring for somebody who's grieving the loss of a loved one, and you know that getting out and doing things would be good for that person, but it just doesn't work when you make those suggestions. Now, if the person says, maybe I ought to just get out, you want to be sitting there and nodding and say, yeah, good idea. But don't rush in and say, I've got 3 places where you can go. Then you can just scare them off. The theological grounding is that when a Stephen minister cares for a care receiver, it is really Jesus Christ in that Stephen minister caring for the care receiver. It's a $6 word. It's incarnational theology, that we are the embodiment of Jesus Christ. And basically what a Stephen minister is to another person is basically is Jesus to the other person. And we also tell our Stephen leaders that when they are training or supervising their Stephen ministers, they are not necessarily just a Stephen leader, but they are Jesus, the great teacher, the great rabbi, teaching people and supervising people. So it is really Jesus embodied in who we are. That's the theology of Stephen ministry. Because what we found is that Stephen ministers, oftentimes they will say that they are getting more out of their Stephen ministry than the care receiver. And I've had Stephen ministers to say, I've got the idea, I'm getting more out of this than my care receiver. Is this all right? And I say, this is perfectly all right. I think it is really when people are in touch with God, in touch with Jesus, that this happens to a great extent when they are in the process of doing one-to-one ministry to another person. Christianity is not a spectator sport. It was never intended to be a spectator sport. God gave to the church apostles, evangelists, and pastors and teachers, or pastor-teachers, whose job is to equip the saints for ministry. And the word for equip is katartizo. It's a Greek word that it means literally to mend nets, to fit people out, to refine them, to help them do the best possible job they can. So the job of a pastor, one of his or her jobs, is to equip people for ministry so that they, in their own right, can do fantastic ministry in addition to the pastor doing great ministry. The fact that when a pastor equips people for ministry, whether it's caring ministry or any other ministry, that makes the pastor more powerful, certainly more effective. But in my own work, in my own life, that the more I have empowered people to do what they do, the more powerful I am, and that's not bad. So we say to pastors is that by being an equipper and getting people involved in ministry, it's not that you're building them up and you're reducing yourself. You're building both up. It's a win-win situation. It's tremendous synergy. Now, as a clinical psychologist, I strongly believe that the secular psychologists and psychiatrists and theorists, all of them, just about all of them, are just wonderful. But spiritual care goes much deeper than that, much deeper than even getting into your unconscious, for example. A Stephen minister can talk about ultimate issues in life. Death, for example, facing death, asking about the meaning of life. I do think that Christians, if they are well educated and well trained, and we try to do this with Stephen ministers, can get into these issues. Plus, also, there's the age-old problem of the biggest question is that why is there suffering in the world and why is there evil in the world? And I'll tell you, a good response to when somebody asks that question is not to try to explain it or to give a theological answer that you can put in a box. What people want is they want to listen and they want to be cared for. And they want Jesus to reach out to them and touch them, not to have some rational answer to that question, because it's a very difficult question. And as far as I'm concerned, is that there's no big answer to that question. There's not an answer, and that is a mystery. And I look forward to finding out the answer to that question someday. I often said that that's the first thing I'm going to do when I get to heaven and meet God face to face, is to say, why did you allow all this suffering and evil in the world? And then I think, nah, at that time I'm probably not going to care about that. It won't be a big deal anymore. But that's a tough, why is there suffering in the world? And it's so easy to say, oh, look at all the growth that you've had from your suffering. If you're healthy, it's easier to say that than if you're on the receiving end of care. I think when a person allows you into their life and shares their feelings and their hurts with you, they are giving you a fantastic gift. And I think when you listen to them and when you accept their feelings and when you share love, Christ's love to them, you are giving them a similarly powerful gift.